So, Gary, what is your title?
My official title at the moment, it has changed a couple of times since I've been here, is Associate Senior Minister.
Great. And what does that mean?
I didn't think I was going to get such hard questions.
I'm sorry.
I'm responsible for a number of things. I was part of our leadership team across the whole of Rising Brook, and probably my main focus would be on the organisational side of stuff, how we operate, how we hang together. So obviously leading us through the rebranding, name changing, those sort of things as well. All the, let's say, the wonderful budgetary operational stuff, but also the staff team, taking responsibility for the staff team, and my more greater passion and global mission, responsible for all our global mission programs across all our churches.
Great. And so you've recently moved, is that right?
We moved last September. Helen and I moved to Stafford. We've been living in Oswestry on the Welsh border. Lived there for 22 years, working with OM, and yeah, just moved over a year ago.
Great. So you can walk to church?
I can.
Great.
Don't ask me whether I do. I can.
Great. Well, we're really looking forward to hear what you've got to say this morning. So before we do that, why don't I pray for you? Because I think you probably need that.
That would be great.
Yeah. God, we thank you so much for Gary. We thank you for just the journey that he has been on and all the things that he has experienced, battled with, and triumphed over. And we just thank you for his relationship with you. And we really want to hear from his heart what you've put there. And just thank you for that. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Ben. Hey, it's great to be here with you. Let me just get rid of that. I've not been here on a Sunday before. Obviously, been here through the week. A couple of different times, but it's wonderful to be able to worship with you and share a great time of communion. Wasn't that fabulous? Just a real sense of family I had in the midst of that communion time. What I'm going to speak about this morning is actually I was given the passage in 2 Kings 4, verses 8 to 37. And it's a wonderful story about a woman from Shunem, the Shunammite woman. Everybody know that story? Anybody know that story? I get a lot of blank faces. Okay, this 2 Kings, this is one of these books in the Old Testament. I'm sure you've been in there. The woman of Shunammite. It's a fabulous story that we're going to be looking at. Before we actually look at the specific story, I'm going to just read the first couple of verses on this. It's 2 Kings 4, verse 8. Does anybody have a paper Bible? You have a couple of, yeah. You know, my wife pulled out a paper Bible. I'm like, what's that? She pulled one out. I only ever pull this out when I'm preaching now. I got to be honest. That's terrible, isn't it? I'm an electronic person as well. But if you do have your Bible, you can follow along with me. 2 Kings chapter 4. And verse 8, one of the problems with the paper Bible is I cannot expand the lettering and my eyes are fading. It's a real drawback, so I'm getting down a little bit here. It says, one day Elisha went to a town of Shunem. A wealthy woman lived there, invited him to eat some food, and then she said to her husband, she's talking about her husband, would do some things with her. Sorry, I'm skipping over this for a reason. We'll read it better in a minute. And then Elisha returned to Shunem, and he said to his servant, Gehazi. And the reason I did that, the reason I read that in that way is I wanted to focus, first of all, as we look into a story, I don't know about you, but when I look at a story, I'm always quite intrigued of who the cast of characters are. It's not just the message that's in the story, but who are the people? that are part of this story, because when we talk about stories, we talk about what God is doing in through the center, the crossing. It's all about people. There's no stories without people. And it's the people that make the story. It's the flaws in the people that enhance the story and make the story as well. So I wanted to, just very, very briefly, for the first few minutes, look at the four cast of characters that are in the story. We have Elisha, we've mentioned. We have Gehazi, his servant. We have a woman in Shunem, and the woman's husband. And as we look at these and we begin to unpack the actual story that unfolded, maybe you can start thinking of, who do I relate to in this story? Is there somebody that I can relate to? I can see myself in that person. I can see myself in that person's reactions. Or I can see myself in that person's challenges as well. So when we think about Elisha, he was Elijah's servant. The story when Elijah, incredible great prophet, and Elisha was his servant. As you read through that, and of course Elisha, he took over from Elijah, was anointed by God and took over from Elijah, and just incredible things he was doing. You'd have to say that Elisha was probably mentored by Elijah. He was discipled by Elijah. And here he was now having to step up. It's one thing when you're being discipled, you're being mentored, and you're sort of in there, and there's a protection of Elijah. He's the main man. Here's Elisha, had to step up. That's scary. You step up, you're the main person. You're kind of in the firing line. But God was doing amazing things through Elisha. If we read through in 2 Kings in chapter 2, town's water was polluted, and Elisha threw some salt on it, and the water was great again. Anybody ever done that? Huh? I throw salt in water. I get salt water. But here it was purified. God doing things through Elisha. He, with a widow who was in debt, needing to pay her debts, and didn't have any money, Elisha says, well, we'll just start filling up your jars with a little oil. And she fills it up, and more fills up, and more fills up, and it's just endless oil, olive oil, just filling up in all these jars, coming from nowhere. Have you ever done that? This was a man of God, Elisha. This is who he was. One of my favorite ones is the story of the guys who were cutting some wood, and the axe head fell off and went into the water. And of course, what would you do in that situation? If I really wanted to help, perhaps I'd have dived in to the bottom. Yeah? And you're kind of going around the bottom, and I'll find the axe head for you. It's all right. Not Elisha. No, he makes the axe head float. You done that? Is there something more special about Elisha than us? I don't think so, because the person who did it was God. The person who lives and dwells in all of us was God. But it's also with Elisha. Of course, one of his more famous ones was Naaman the leper, getting him to dunk himself a few times, and he's healed. But there's also an incredible little thing here in chapter 2, verse 23, where Elisha, this incredible man of God, axe heads raising, all this stuff going on, but people were mocking him. There's a passage there where these young people, no offense, were mocking him. They're taking a mickey out of him. Have you ever been mocked? Have you ever been mocked for your faith? Perhaps now we can begin to relate to Elisha. He was also mocked. he had to step up. It was scary. And this was early on in his ministry where he was mocked. Of course, it's an incredible story. And I'm not saying this will happen today, but the people who were mocking him, 2 bears came out of the forest and killed them. I don't know what to make of that. I gotta be honest. People mock me for being a Christian. I'm kind of not expecting. You might have wished they might get struck down, but I'm not really expecting that to happen. But that's Elisha. Can we relate to him? Because he was mocked. Incredible man of God, but he was mocked. Mocked for who he was, for serving God. Stepping up. And then there's Gehazi. He's Elisha's servant. So Elisha was Elijah's servant, so he was obviously being mentored. You can expect that Gehazi is probably being mentored by Elisha as well. We pass on things that we've learned. And Elisha actually spoke through him. When we read through the story, we'll see that Elisha quite often did not speak to the woman of Shunem. He speak. Even there's a little bit of a passage in there where it seems that the woman is standing before Elisha, and Elisha speaks to his servant to tell her. It's not to tell her something. He spoke through his servant quite often, not always, but quite often. So he held him in high regard. He actually trusted him. He was his servant. He was probably the guy he was sorting out to maybe take over from him. He was mentoring him. But Gehazi, although he was a great guy, he absolutely messed up. When you read on through 2 Kings, this story with Naaman the leper who is healed, and Elisha wouldn't take any reward from that, wouldn't take any money that was being offered. Gehazi, he decided he would actually cash in on this. He went to Naaman and said, yeah, my master's changed his mind. He lied. And he took the silver and all the other precious stuff that Naaman was given as a reward for what God had done in his life. And he took that and he hid it. And he lied to Elisha. And he was caught out in his lies. He stole. He messed up. Big time. Servant. Someone who was held in high regard, who was trusted, who Elisha was actually speaking through, who God was using, messed up. I don't know if you can relate to that. I can relate to that. There's times I've messed up. Even when I was the leader of OM in the UK, massive responsibility role, big leader, I've messed up. Can you relate to messing up? Well, we find with Gehazi in chapter 8, verses 1 to 6, Gehazi seems to be restored. He messed up and he was punished. He was actually punished in an incredible way. He was turned into a leper. These are difficult passages, guys. When he messed up and he was caught out, he was punished, Elisha pronounced that he and his descendants would be a leper, and he immediately turned into a leper. But in chapter 8, he's in the king's presence. If you read on, I'm not going to take time to read this now, but the servant, Gehazi, the guy who messed up, is actually in the king's presence. The guy who is a leper is in the king's presence. Lepers don't go in the king's presence. Is he restored? Something happened? Because the reason he was in the king's presence, the king was asking, tell me the stories about Elisha. The king was wanting to know the stories. Talking about telling stories. So here the guy who had messed up, who'd been punished, is now back telling the stories of all that God had done through Elisha. Can you relate to that? We're restored even when we mess up. God restores us, brings us back, and we're telling his story, his glory. Then we have the woman. Woman in Shunem. Yeah, we don't know her name. It's the principal character here in the story, and we don't even know her name. It's just a woman. But don't feel bad. This isn't a sexist thing, by the way, because when we get to the husband, he's just called the husband. We don't know his name either. So I don't want us to get into a woman thing here. Pull that one out of the fire. But she's not named. But she has a heart to serve. Can you relate to that? Just a heart to serve. But when we read through this passage a bit more, we see that the woman had disappointments in her life. Deep disappointments in her life. She didn't have any children. Probably there to hurt, hit her pain. It was probably quieter as well, not having children. But there was hurt, there was disappointment in her life as well. And then the woman's husband, again, we don't know his name. We don't know much about him at all, actually. We really don't know anything about him. Apart from one thing I would like to say is without him working away, doing the job he was doing, providing what he was providing, the woman would not have been in a position to serve the way she was in that position. Do you ever feel you're kind of just in the background, not acknowledged? Let me tell you, whether you feel that or not, when you're serving, when you're doing that stuff, when you're doing it in the background, it's allowing God to do mighty things through other people, right up to the Elishas and all that he was doing. So that's our cast of characters. That's the introduction. When am I supposed to finish? I didn't actually ask that. That's the number one rule. Don't tell me. Okay. Let's read 2 Kings. Don't worry. It won't be as long as that. Let's read 2 Kings 4 and verse 8. You can follow along with me. Say, one day Elisha went to the town of Shunem. A wealthy woman lived there, and she invited him to eat some food. From then on, whenever he passed that way, he would stop there to eat. So she said to her husband, I'm sure this man who stops in from time to time is a holy man of God. I was wondering why she actually invited him in the first place. It just sounds like she only sort of discovered that over time. But she saw a need. I'm sure he said, he's a holy man of God. Let's make a little room for him on the roof and furnish it with a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp. Then he will have a place to stay whenever he comes by. Isn't that great? This woman who has just got a heart to serve. And she saw a need. She saw Elisha and said, here's a need. I can help with that. I can feed him. What needs are we seeing? Because in order for that woman to have seen that need, she had to have her eyes open. She had to be looking. She had to be like, where can I help somebody? How can I show kindness to somebody? There's somebody. It just doesn't happen without us being intentional and looking. Where are we seeing the needs around in our congregation, in our area of this town, in Stone? Are we seeing them? We say, hey, I could invite that person in. I could feed that person. I could help that person. And in verse 9, we see that she went even further. One minute she's got this guy and our servant coming in, she's feeding him, and I'm sure the husband's there thinking, oh, this is great, and yeah, happy to provide for that. And the next thing, he's building a house for the guy. He's staying. This has become a bit of a permanent thing, every time he comes through. And that must have cost. I'm getting building work. Well, we're getting building work more. This is my wife, by the way. Did I? My wife, Helen? We're getting some building work done in our house at the moment, so I can relate to this a little bit. It costs money. I'm shocked. My builder actually has come to me and asked me to give him money for what he's doing. Can you believe that? The audacity of the guy. It costs. And so, when they're talking about, let's do this, it's going to cost. We talk about, let's take over this center here. That's a good idea. Whose idea was this? God's idea, but it costs. It's a challenge. It costs. I was in a particular country once, and it was a country people didn't have much at all, and I was invited into a house, and they fed me. So I was the Alicia type of person on this. They fed me, and so they put in front of me these 3 fried eggs. There's myself and another guy there, so with 3 fried eggs each. But the rest of the family sat around the room watching us. Very uncomfortable, gotta be honest. But what struck you immediately was, oh my goodness, this is all they have. These people are just giving me, because of hospitality, because of kindness, because of welcome. They haven't given me out of their surplus. So much easier to give out of our surplus. They've just given me all that they have. And they don't have enough for themselves. Oh boy, that's humbling. I had to actually, on that day, I visited 3 different families, and I had the same thing repeated in each one. By the end of the day, I'd had 9 fried eggs, and no HP brown sauce to put on them at all. Sacrificial living as missionaries. But really humbling. They give beyond what they had. And it costs. That's a challenge. I find it personally easier to give out of what I have than to give out of what I don't have. In fact, it's physically impossible, surely, to give out of what you don't have, isn't it? God calls us just to give ourselves and to give all that we have. And as the woman saw the need, saw Alicia, she created an environment of welcome. Isn't that what we're wanting to create here in the center? We want people to come in and feel welcome, feel at home. And that costs. And that can be messy. One of the things that we're working through at the moment up in Stafford is that God has blessed us with people coming in and feeling welcome and feeling at home, and they are people in incredible need. Some of them are drug addicts, some of them are homeless, some have different needs, some have got mental issues. And how are we loving and welcoming these people in a consistent way? And it's a challenge because it costs. But it's what God has called us to do, to create that environment of welcome. And that's what the Shunammite woman did. I was welcomed into a home, and I was in this country where normally I would sleep on the front seat of my van. I was delivering a lot of stuff around this country. And this woman insisted that I come and stay with them in their apartment. And so I went in, and what basically happened was, she said, I'm going to sleep with the children. You can sleep in my room with my husband. I'm going, be with my husband. She's fine. That's okay. The problem is, when I went in to the bedroom, the husband was in bed. Okay, which was fine. But the real problem was, the husband was asleep. Now, can you imagine him waking up in the middle of the night and there's this bloke in his bed where his wife should be? That's the kind of situation I was in. So I got in the bed, prayed a lot, clung to the side of the bed. I don't know if I slept much that night. It wasn't because there was a guy in the bed. It was just this thought of, if this guy wakes up, he's probably going to hit me. Or I don't know what he's going to do. But hospitality is a bit crazy at times, a bit messy in that situation. And I hope you never find yourself in that situation yourself. And if you do invite somebody into your house, let's learn a lesson from this. So if you're inviting somebody into your house, the only bed you've got is your own bed, and your husband's already asleep in the bed, I'm just letting you know this, wake him up and tell him. Okay? Scare the life out of the guy. But as we look at this story, it's carrying on here, you know, the Shunammite woman, she saw a need. She said, hey, here's a need. I can help with this. I'm looking. I saw it. I'm delivering. I can help with this. If we read on with Elisha, you know, he returned to Shunem. He went up to his room. This is from verse 11, to rest. He said to his servant Gehazi, tell the woman I want to speak to her. When she arrived, Elisha said to Gehazi, tell her that this is the bit where I've said she's arrived, and he's still speaking through his servant. Tell her that we appreciate the kind concern she has shown us. And I ask her, what can we do for her? Does she want me to put in a good word for the king or the commander of the army? No, she replied, my family takes good care of me. Later, Elisha asked Gehazi, what do you think we can do for her? This is a really important question when we're welcoming people in. So often we think we know what people want. So often we think we know how to welcome them, how to care for them. But do we ever ask? Actually go out and ask, hey, what can we do for you? How can we help you as a community? How can we help you as an individual? How can I help you? And if you ask that question, be prepared for the answer. Because the answer may be way beyond what you're able to do. In India, I work a lot in India, still work a lot in India. And I don't know if you know some of the situations that have gone on over there over the number of years. There's a group called the Dalits. There's Dalit Freedom Network, DFN, which is part of one of our main partners for us as a church, group of churches. And I hope that you'll hear more about that. I've been involved in that from the start. Actually, I started DFN UK right originally, but it was in a response to what God was doing and the persecution that the Dalits were under in India. And our guys in India, leaders of OM, it was then, went to the Dalit leaders and asked them, how can we help you? These people are wanting to throw off Hinduism in their hundreds of thousands to millions of people. This isn't a small thing. Said, how can we help you? And their immediate response was, educate our children. Educate our children. Now, in OM, we didn't do schools. You know, so we asked the question thinking it was something we could deliver because we know what we're doing, and the answer was something completely out of our comfort zone. But we said, okay. And now, as the ministry there, we have well over 100 schools, tens of thousands of kids in those schools. Cut a long story short, God has blessed that immensely. We now have more than 4,000 churches planted in India, 4,000. That all of that came out of a single question. How can we help you? What are you prepared for the answer for that? What are you prepared to go? What are you prepared to do in asking that question? And Alicia asked that question of the woman. Of course, she didn't answer, but they discerned that her need was a child. There's discernment of the pain that was obviously in her life, the disappointment was in her life, and that situation that she needed a child. And as I was reading, I was thinking, how did Gehazi know that? You know, in that culture, how did he know that? And the only conclusion I can come to is that he knew that because he had taken time to get to know her. He had spent time with her. How can we know what people need, what people want? How can we help people unless we get to know them? And as the woman created a welcome, and we're wanting to create a welcome, within that welcome they created relationship. And this is all about us creating relationship with the people that come into our church, the people that come in through the week, the people that we encounter in our neighborhoods and in our town. Creating relationship so that we can say, how can we help you? What are your deepest needs? How can we be involved in that? But one of the ministries that we do as a church is Storehouse. Do you ever know a Storehouse ministry? Most hands, few hands. This is where, people who have nothing, we're taking furniture to them. But, as I read this, she furnished it with a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp. Storehouse is helping to furnish people with a bed, a table, a chair. I'm not so sure about the lamp. Pat tested and all that, electrical stuff. Didn't have health and safety background. Isn't that interesting? And Storehouse is doing that. People around, even in Stone as well. People who have nothing here in Stone. And we have a warehouse up in Eccleshaw. And last April, I gave the go-ahead for us to lease this warehouse. It costs money. And we just have enough for the lease for this year, and we're praying for the finances for next year. So we've stepped out because there's a need. We're meeting that need. But it's more than we can physically do ourselves and deliver, but God's providing. I need people in Storehouse. If you want to get involved in that, humping furniture around, it's great. But we need people who can also build relationship. It's not just about taking furniture to folk. It's actually building that relationship with them. There's some of the people that we've delivered to are now part of the Storehouse team delivering furniture. And God is beginning to do work in their lives. So I don't know if there's people here who could volunteer for that. It'd be brilliant. We actually could do with some women. Why do I say that? Because most of the ones doing it are men. And when two men turn up at a very vulnerable, maybe single mother's apartment, there's a challenge in that. We could do with some ladies, really, to make those relationships and connection. It's also a protection thing as well. Pray about that. Here's an area. How can I help? Maybe Storehouse. Because in 2 Kings 4 and 15 to 17, Alicia says, you're going to have a child. Oh, come on, man. That is some step of faith. You're going to have a child. But Alicia knew that it was beyond his ability to deliver. And so much is beyond our ability to deliver because God is going to do it. When we talk about storehouse, we talk about these centers, we talk about everything God is doing in and through us as churches, quite frankly, it's beyond our ability. And that's exciting, that is scary, that is all sorts of things in between as well. The woman from Schumann, she had a child. Isn't that fabulous? She had a baby. Great joy. You know, what a wonderful ending to the story. Should it an ending to the story? No. Because the child died. You know, and you look at that and the tragedy, and you're like, she didn't want the child in the first place. No, she did want the child, but she said, no, don't do this to me. Don't give me the hope of my life here of this child. And then it's ripped away from her. The disappointment, the hurt on that. Can you relate to any of that as well? That's going on in her life? But what was her response? Because, you know, I've seen over the years the distance between being hurt and being bitter is this distance. Maybe you've made that journey over the years. Yeah, you've been hurt, disappointed in God, disappointed in people in this congregation, disappointed in each other, disappointed in so many people. And you made the journey to bitterness. But this woman didn't make that journey. Because we read that she went to Elisha. And we're going down to verse 27. When she came to the man of God at the mountain, she fell to the ground before him and caught hold of his feet. She was deeply troubled. She said, you know, I didn't tell you to raise my hopes. It was you. You know, you said I could have a son, but I didn't tell you not to, didn't I tell you not to raise my hopes? But she was coming in sorrow, not in bitterness. Because she came. And, you know, God wants us to come to him and not be false. He doesn't expect us to come to him and say, it's all okay. Actually, that's what the lady did with Gehazi. I didn't read that verse out. But when she came to the servant, he says, is there a problem here? And she's like, no, everything's great. It's all okay. We're all fine. Then she came to Elisha. She just collapsed. And that's where God wants us to be when we're hurting. Collapse with him. But not saying, it's all fine. She was actually able to say, you know, I'm really hurt. You know, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. I'm really hurt. But she wasn't bitter. And as we read through this story, of course, God's power was brought in beyond the ability to deliver. And through Elisha, the child was raised, and it is a happy ending. So the child was raised from the dead, and there was rejoicing. You know, the woman had a fear. It stopped her asking for a child. Of course, she eventually got the child, but there's a fear. I think that fear related to hurt. She didn't lose faith. What fear or disappointment are you trying to avoid by not stepping out in faith? How often do we try to protect ourselves from hurt by not stepping out in faith? And even asking somebody, how can I help you? We mightn't even ask that because we're afraid of being mocked. Like Elisha was mocked. Who do people think you are? You know, Helen was at a conference for all new people joining OM. She just came back yesterday. She was telling me on Friday night, it's actually late Friday night, about 9 o'clock Friday night, because Helen does a lot of counseling there as well. It's this girl who'd been having nightmares all week. Nightmares about, she was going to a particularly difficult country, and, it can cost, and it's a country where people get killed, people get put in prison, and she's going there as Christians, and she was having this nightmare about somebody coming to her door with a gun to shoot her when she got there. In Christians and mission, there's a real challenge between seeing how we can get everything all right, but actually stepping out into a danger zone. But the thing about this story, the reason I tell it, is that there's no guarantee that that won't happen to this girl, by the way, where she goes. But that wasn't the issue. The issue is Helen was praying with her and working through all this and doing quite a bit of counseling with her. Was it all stemmed from something else that had happened in her life. Actually, another time when somebody did come to her with a gun in the country that she was from, when she thought she was going to be killed, and that fear was carrying on. And that fear, legitimate fear, was being used, I would say, by the enemy to try and pull her back from doing what God wanted her to do. And she had to be healed from that. And she was healed from that in an incredible way. Friday night, Helen's telling me that story was just amazing. And the presence of God in that girl's life, the healer from that. So I don't know what fear, what's going on in your life, what you need healed from as well. God wants you to be released. So I don't know who you relate to, and I'm finishing now. Do you relate to Elisha? He was mocked, did amazing things for God, but was still mocked. Do you relate to Gehazi? Great servant, trusted, but messed up, big time. But was also restored. Do you relate to the woman? Serving, just really wants their best, but hurts, disappointments, deep things in her life that God needed to deal with, needed to heal her from. Or do you relate to the husband? In the background, don't know anything about him. I don't know if he struggled with not being recognized. I don't know what he thinks if he read the story. He said, hang on a second, I had a bigger part to play than that. Why am I not recognized? Do you feel that? Now, because what we're about is a bunch of people, a bunch of characters, God's pulled together, all messy, all different hang-ups, different situations that we come from, but through us, God's creating a welcome for people. Through us, God's creating relationship with people. And through us, God's creating a place where He can do what we can't and where He will be glorified. Thank you.